All right, it is time to go through UFC 210. I've at this point just kind of given up on the webcam. It's annoying to make work, and I don't exactly do anything in front of it that makes it worthwhile. If you hear any little sounds in the background, that's seeing people asking me about tonight's race. Tonight is the Zero GT finale, so I'll be enjoying that. But before that, I figured I'd get this out here. All right, starting from the bottom, working our way up, we have flyweights Janelle Lausa versus Magomed Biblitov. I'm going with Biblitov. Lausa is a pretty athletic guy, actually a pretty solid striker for a flyweight. Packs a considerable punch, but I believe the rest of his game still needs a lot of rounding out. And Biblitov is the type of guy who's going to exploit the deficiencies of his clinch and wrestling game, particularly get this fight to the ground ride out as a decision probably, but I wouldn't be surprised to see some kind of rear naked choke submission either. Caitlin Chikugian versus Irene Aldana. Aldana's last performance was distressing, not in the fact that she lost, but in the sense that the manner in which she lost. It was just it wasn't that she particularly was exposed as inexperienced in ways, just she couldn't deal with Leslie Smith's pressure. And there's not really a lot of guile to Leslie Smith, if we're being completely honest. She's a very straight up style fighter. That's really concerning. Chukugian, much more technical, but not really a pressure based game. So that makes this fight very, very intriguing, very interesting. What's going to happen with it? Um, I'm gonna go with Chukagian because I think she's figured out the type of fighter she wants to be. I think Aldana still has some maturing as a fighter to do, and that could be a problem in this particular fight. Josh Emmett versus Desmond Green. Desmond Green could win this fight. I think he's the better athlete. I think he has a bigger future, but Emmett, I think, is just the type of fighter that he doesn't want to be facing right now. Emmett's probably the better wrestler, on the feet good enough. Green is like a quintessential decision fighter, and Emmett has the style, I think, to shut that kind of thing down and win the decision against him. Gregor Gillespie versus Andrew Holbrook. Gillespie is a tremendous prospect. Amazing wrestling background, really good, really excited, really looking forward to this. Holbrook is, to a degree, a far better MMA fighter right now, but his primary mode of operation is kind of a grinding style that Gillespie's going to be able to not just shut down, but take advantage of and implement his own game, his own power wrestling based game, and take the win. Gillespie by decision. Jan Blachowicz versus Patrick Cummings. Going with Patrick Cummings, but with the caveat that Patrick Cummings, when he gets hit, he really gets hit. Like, if you really watch him take a hit, he is bad at it. It's not that he's particularly easy to hit. It's not that he's a particularly bad striker, but his reaction to getting hit is not in a mental fear sense, but in a sense of inability to respond to it is terrible. And although Blachowicz is not an amazingly powerful striker, he is a talented enough striker to possibly put Cummins on his butt. But Blachowicz has been a guy who can be taken down in the past. Cummins is a really, really good wrestler. On the ground, Blachowicz is the better grappler, but a little bit too passive to really catch Cummins in anything. Going with Patrick Cummins here to win a decision. Charles Rosa versus Shane Burgos. I'm still not 100% sold on Shane Burgos. He is impressive. Looked impressive against Thiago Trator, but Trator is a small lightweight, or a small featherweight, I should say. Not a particularly skilled one. Charles Rosa is not a particularly skilled one either, but he's bigger, more athletic. And the skill that he does possess, which is a takedown and grappling game, is very good. He's also very, very tough. I've got Charles Rosa winning this one by submission, but Burgos is a better striker. He is a bright spot in the future of the division. He's a great story with the coming back from scoliosis. I'm intrigued by this fight. This fight is the first one I think on the card that is properly intriguing. Well, Chikagian versus Aldana to a certain extent. Up until this point, I think it'd been a lot of kind of easy to pick wins. Although fights you could see the other guy winning, this one's a little bit more difficult in that regard. Kamaru Usman versus Sean Strickland. I'm going with Usman. His stand-up has been improving radically. His wrestling is superb. He's amazingly athletic. Not a tremendously exciting fighter, but one that is actually pretty exciting. And Strickland's a really good fighter as well. But I think Strickland, a case of taking a little bit too much out of himself, making it to welterweight, that could catch up against a guy who's going to be as physical and as powerful as Kamaru Usman. Usman by decision. I'm going with Miles Jury to submit Mike De La Torre. I'm not a huge fan of De La Torre. He's a tough guy. He's not a bad fighter by any means. He's a solid test for a lot of up-and-comer guys. It just feels like Miles Jury, yeah, I know this is a long, long layoff fight, and that's always the confusing thing. It just feels like the wrong place for him, even though he is on a losing streak and so on. But we are talking about a guy who did lose to Maximo Blanco and Godofredo Pepe and Brian Ortega and Mark Bocek, and his wins are over Thiago dos Santos, Silva, and Yui Nam, which is in a fight that he arguably lost. This is not really a lot of excitement about Mike De La Torre right now. Yeah, so I see Jury getting him to the ground at some point and putting the submission on him. Will Brooks versus Charles Oliveira. I gotta go with Will Brooks. Charles Oliveira went down to featherweight to escape kind of bigger, more powerful grappling-based fighters, and is coming back up here because he had some serious weight management problems. It's not that he's big enough to be a lightweight. That's the thing. Like, featherweight really was his home. He just wasn't good at managing the weight. Brooks, yeah, disappointing last time out with the fight with Alex Oliveira, but Alex Oliveira, a proper sized welterweight, didn't make weight. I think probably intentionally gained advantage by not trying to cut as hard as he could have. Yeah, there's not really any reason to really think Charles Oliveira could win this fight. Could he win by submission? Sure, totally. I mean, Charles Oliveira is the Bronx is a submission wizard. That's always on the cards. But Will Brooks should be able to hang with him on the feet, probably even outstrike him. Should be able to take him down if he needs to. Should be able to control him. Should be able to ride out a decision. Thiago Alves versus Patrick Cote. Going with Cote by decision here as well, although it's a fight with not a lot of meaning. These are two old veterans kind of probably seeing their way out of the game. Kind of feels... Really, this entire main card, outside of the final two fights, feels really misplaced as main card fights. And we'll get more into that as we go. But Alves, he wanted to go down to lightweight to avoid welterweights who could potentially control him, potentially use wrestling against him, potentially use reach against him. Cote can do all of those things. He has reach. He has the ability to take this fight to the ground. He has the ability to be kind of dominating and controlling. Chin is historically good, even if I believe he is coming off of TKO loss. Let me just quick look at that, make sure I'm correct. He did get knocked out by Cerrone. Yeah, he got TKO by Cerrone, but ate some shots from Ben Saunders and seemed okay. Ate some shots from Wonderboy Thompson back in time and was okay. I don't think Alves is the type of guy to TKO at this point. Although, and I'm just not entirely certain what Alves has left in the tank. I'm not entirely certain what Cote has left in the tank, but I think it's a little bit more than Alves. Cynthia Calvillo versus Pearl Gonzalez. What is this fight doing on a main card? We have a 1-0 in the UFC fighter versus an 0-0 fighter in the UFC with no Wikipedia page, as you can see from the image I've thrown up here. Because I figured noting the fighters that don't have Wikipedia pages would be interesting. Although I am surprised that Josh Emmett and Andrew Holbrook don't have Wikipedia pages. Cynthia Calvillo, really good grappler. Pearl Gonzalez is also a bit of a ground ace. I see this going to the ground. I see Calvillo at some point getting a submission or riding out a decision. Both of these girls actually have a lot of potential. I'm kind of poo-pooing the fight, but I like the fight. I poo-poo its location on the card. Like this should be Fight Pass or Fox Sports. Um, not main card. Not third last fight of the night. Chris Weidman versus Gegard Mousasi. Man, if this fight was made at like any other point, I would pick Weidman in a heartbeat. Like, pretty good striker, really good wrestling. This is the recipe for beating Gegard Mousasi. But I keep coming back to the fact that he just, after getting finished twice and looking completely devastated after both of them, you got to wonder about where he is at this point mentally. Where is he? And some of the claims he's making are making me wonder even more about that. So, I mean, that's a tough one. I mean, realistically, he has the style to beat Mousasi. Mousasi traditionally hasn't liked it if you really can control the fight on him. Despite having a really well-rounded skill set and being one of my all-time favorite fighters. I love Gegard Mousasi as a fighter. Uh, Great striker, good grappling game. Really, I think, an underrated wrestling game that people don't really talk about. But Weidman is the better wrestler. Weidman is not necessarily the better grappler, but a good enough grappler that if he's on top of Mousasi, I don't see him getting caught and stuff or getting reversed. And on the feet, he shouldn't be instant knocked out by Mousasi or anything. So I am going to have to go with Weidman by decision, but this is this is an alarming fight. And then Rumble Johnson versus Daniel Cormier. I honestly see this fight going very similar to prior fights. Rumble Johnson is still what Rumble Johnson is, and he's been around for so long that I think we know what he is. He is an incredibly powerful striker, very athletic, difficult to take down, but not impossible. But a fighter who doesn't seem to really he runs out of ideas very quickly and goes into places that he doesn't really need to, like trying to take down Phil Davis, for example. He doesn't just stick on what's working. And against Cormier, I think he just gets taken down and subbed again. It'll take a while. Don't get me wrong. Like, this is not he'll get taken down and subbed right away. The takedown's gonna be hard to come by, and the sub is gonna be hard to come by. But I think it's going to eventually happen. I would say second, third, fourth round. One of those in the middle there. I don't see it going to the fifth, and I don't see it ending in the first. If it ends in the first, I think it's Rumble's knocked out Cormier. And then the winner of this fight goes on to fight John Jones. Hopefully, the Jones thing has left 205 kind of just really messed, and the UFC main event picture for a lot of these fight cards kind of messed up. Anyways, that's my thoughts on the upcoming card. I think a lot of decisions, which I think is a bit of a problem. I'm always one that kind of argues that decisions are not a bad thing, but too much of them is probably a bad thing. There's not one of these fights that I think is going to be tremendously boring. That's nice. Well, Cummins Blachowicz could really, really boring if the right things happen. And Josh Emmett versus Des Green could also kind of end up boring because both those fighters are really capable of just kind of settling for top position and not really doing anything else. But it could also be pretty good. We got some really good prospects on this card coming up. I think Janelle Lassa, I think Magomed Bibulatov is going to be a good thing. I think Gregor Gillespie is going to be a really good prospect. I think Irene Aldana might be. I think Shane Burgos, Charles Rosa, and Kamaru Usman and Sean Strickland all have bright futures. I think Cynthia Calvillo and Pearl Gonzalez, I think, are going to be again really wrong place on the card, but I think they're players in the future of the strawweight division. It's not a fight to be really amped about on this card, but it's not bad. It's not bad. We'll leave it at that. So, usual links in the bottom. I'm also going to throw an extra link in there, just because. So, hopefully everyone enjoyed. Hopefully everyone enjoys the card, and we'll see you next time.